So, dear Jūrate, thank you for joining us today. And my first question is about philanthropy. What does it mean for you?
Well, philanthropy is, to me, a giving. Giving of yourself, of your time, of your resources to those who are less fortunate, and giving with love, not with pity, not with condescension, but with a great sense of charity, that I am blessed with opportunity and I want to share it as much as I can.
Is it important to talk about philanthropy? I'm asking because we have a conference at the end of June, and how do you think, is it important to talk about philanthropy, how to talk about it? What is the purpose of talking?
Well, it is very important to talk, but more important by example. I think that when we do things for other people, that's what they see, and they get the message of sharing and giving. I do think, though, Lithuanians are generous and kind, but they're still a little shy about saying what they do. And I think that's something that we have to work on, not to be afraid. It's not bragging, it's not boasting, but it's something as simple, you know, I did something that made me happy today. I did something that made me feel good, and it was giving something or helping somebody to cross the street, or giving, you know, some money to a woman begging. And when you give money to a person begging, I always try to make eye contact, to look them in the eye, to say hello, not just toss a coin. That's good, but this is a human being, and it's sad for them. They don't want to be there. Nobody wants to be there. To understand their situation with kindness and love.
Okay, that is really good point that you brought it. And you came from a family with a strong tradition of philanthropy. I think you will agree with that statement.
Absolutely.
And your parents, Juozas and Aleksandra Kazickaitė, helped multiple people in diaspora, even in Russia, where your father was born. And your father was, I would say, a pioneer of philanthropy here in Lithuania. So my question is, what is the source of this willing to help to other people, willing to share your time, your resources, your talents? Does it comes from religion, from values, from society? In your case, how could you describe this? What is the source?
Well, you know, all of the above. We did not have an easy time those early years in America. You know, there was very little money, very little opportunity. But my father always spoke about his father, who had a little store, and he never turned anybody away, even if they couldn't afford to pay for something. So I heard that message of the kindness that my father grew up in his family. I am a Catholic. I went to Catholic schools for 16 years. The nuns were a very powerful influence on me. The message of Christ, daily message, love your neighbor like yourself. As simple as that. That's all you need to know. And my friends, I was surrounded by like-minded people who cared about doing something good in life, not necessarily making a lot of money, being successful, but going into the humanitarian field, something like that. So I had a lot of support and similar souls around me. And, you know, I just remember playing with my dolls. I always thought they were little orphans, and I was taking care of orphans. So it goes back a long way. I know nothing else in life except the importance of sharing, giving, and being kind. That's just, and, you know, like I said, I love to party. I love to travel. I love to have a good time. I think that's, part of life. It's not, I did want to be a nun at some point.
Really?
Very much so. Oh, yeah, for about 4 or 5 years in high school. I was extremely religious, and I really thought that's what I wanted to do. And then, of course, I fell in love, my first boyfriend, and that was the end of that.
That's a really interesting story. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, I don't think I need to share that with the world.
but with details they make interviews vivid and not so formal. So thank you.
It's just a quick digression. I went to Africa after university to work at a mission, and I taught girls there. And I remember in my travels I met missionary nuns. And I remember meeting this one nun, and when she met me and she saw what I was doing, she said, if I had only known I didn't have to become a nun to come to Africa and to help people. I thought, oh, it's a little sad, but, I really thought, I don't have to have the confines of a religious order. I can do the good works that give me great pleasure and still have my freedom, my independence.
Yeah, for a long time, the charity activities were related with religious people, and they, especially women, devoted their lives.
They're saints in my book. They really are saints because they give up a lot. They really do give up a lot. And I know now the nuns don't have to wear habits, and they can smoke and drink and whatever. But they do have to sacrifice and be very careful to live the right path every day.
That's really interesting. When I think about Lithuanian public and Lithuanian media, your family, your father is related to philanthropy a lot of. And your father was among, as I said, pioneers of philanthropic activity in post-1990 Lithuania. Lithuania regained its independence. I believe that you discussed with him about the attitudes of Lithuanian society, its wealthy people. Are they willing to share their assets, and are they willing to donate? And do you see some development during the years in this area? Are Lithuanian people more engaged into sharing, and are we becoming more benevolent and more philanthropic? Because, when I am looking into the situation, especially related with the war in Ukraine, I think we are surprised by ourselves that we can generate a lot of money to buy, I don't know, weapons and some other things which are necessary for that war. And earlier we were thinking that we are not so generous. We don't want to share our money, our time, our talents. But the situation showed that we can, and we are doing. So I would like to hear your perspective, because I think that you during your conversations with your parents, you have this, I don't know, longer perspective, and you can share.
Well, I think there's no greater example of Lithuanians' generosity than in response to the war. This is very, very meaningful for us. And I've asked Lithuanians who live here, how do you explain this, 70 million euros and a population of less than 3 million people, to give this? And I think it's our own history. We've always been nervous about Russian domination, and we never kidded ourselves that everything's going to be fine. Putin himself has expressed the biggest tragedy of the century was the collapse of the Soviet Union. He wants that power back. But I think we respond to the humanitarian crisis, the people losing their homes, losing their loved ones. I mean, the United States covers this war extensively. Almost every day on the front pages, a photograph, and they try to personalize it. They will go to a village and talk to one 90-year-old woman, the last one in her village, and you know, the bombs and everything. So I think Ukraine is a very, you know, it's a beautiful example of how people's hearts are touched. And I think very often philanthropy is a person's very personal response to suffering or sadness. And, you know, when I think, why are people generous to this cause? Something moves them to want to do it. And of course, you know, you always feel so good after you do something good. And I think that where philanthropy really needs to go in Lithuania is in a more kind of strategic direction. We really need thinkers to think long term. Okay, we can give 5,000 euros to this particular old person's home and they'll get a new radiator or something. But what are we really doing to help our pensioners? What are we really, what kind of life are we creating for them? They could live to be 90, 100. Lithuanians live long lives. And, you know, so I think there has to be some very careful planning on government giving and private giving. And that, I think, is, you know, still being developed. But I really do see from the people who come to us, you know, we have a very extensive application form. Tell us, you know, who you are, what you're going to do with this money very carefully. Who else has donated to you? And we encourage, you know, the matching grant, which is like a new concept here. We will give you 10,000 euros if you can raise 10,000 euros from other sources. What does this require? This requires this nonprofit organization to be creative, to work for this money, to, you know, and that, I think, is what our Family Foundation really is trying to do, to teach a new way of marketing yourself, reaching sources of income you didn't even know existed, corporate funds, private funds, and how do you make your pitch to get that response. We started an organization called Jaunimas Gali, and it's run by a very fine young man, Adolfo, and he is learning to go get in-kind donations, jackets for our children, a bicycle as an award, going to corporate people, buses donated to bring the children to basketball games. Very, very inventive. And I think that's a credit to his own smarts, intelligence, creativity. But that's what people should be doing. How can I work for this nonprofit, for this charity. I'm donating my life to it. How can I get you to care as much about it as I do? That's a challenge.
That's the challenge, yeah. And yeah, what you are doing, it's amazing because you are pushing people to learn to overcome their boundaries.
Exactly.
That is
and be proud of your organization.
Yeah.
And people want success stories. I mean, this is something that we struggle with, and this is very hard. Okay, how are you making a difference? All right, it's a good cause, but really, especially with young people, how do we measure success in giving people, you know, self-confidence and helping them with self-esteem and to go out in the world and be something? So, you know, we really have to measure the work we're doing, and that's very hard also for a lot of charities, you know. What good are we really doing? How do we measure success? How do we measure impact? And I know that you're interested in efficient altruism, which is a big topic now in the United States. I have $100. What do? Do I give it to this one person who needs $100 to pay their rent and I save them for a month? Or do I buy 20 mosquito nets for $100 that will save 500 lives in Africa? All right, so I have one person and I have 500 for the same amount of money. And that's the dilemma. Yeah. That's what people are really If I have $1 million, where am I going to give it to? Am I going to give it to a museum? Am I going to give it, am I going to build a house for homeless people? How my money makes an impact. We are all struggling with it, even our foundation. My nieces and nephews, there are 11 grandchildren. They're all involved now. We brought them on board, and they have very interesting ideas on strategic giving, how much, why are we giving 5,000 euros to this person or this organization? What about 2,000? And I said, well, they're asking for 5. Why are they asking for 5? Let them get 3,000 from someplace else. They're very hard-nosed because the economy is not stable. Our foundation resources are shrinking. We want to continue for eternity. How do you do that? You have to have a stronger economy, whatever, but you also have to be careful about your giving. So philanthropy is a challenge, and it's a full-time, you mentioned something, my career as a philanthropist. I don't think of my career as a philanthropist. I think of myself as a writer and, what have you, but this is my passion, and this is what gives my life meaning. And I have to be thoughtful about it. It is my father's legacy. He sold Omnitel. He took that money, he put it in, and he meant two reasons. 1, to help Lithuania, and 2, to keep the family together, to keep it together. And it really works. We have 4 board meetings a year. We discuss all the time. We come here. I am blessed to have this opportunity, blessed.
Okay, thank you for starting telling about foundation. Could you expand a little bit more what you told about the beginning, how it started?
Well, it was always education. My father's the very first thing he did was get computers. He brought in 1,000 computers, distributed them. But what good is a computer if nobody knows how to use it? So then he had to have teachers, and those teachers had to be trained. So he had to have computer training teachers to teach them how to use computers. And believe me, those first years, nobody knew what to do with it. They were playing games and everything else. And so education is kind of the overarching theme of everything that we care about. But as time went on, I myself, was very much drawn to the social services, to the homeless, the poor, the needy, the orphans. And then, of course, the cultural institutions. This is what makes Lithuania so unusual in my mind. People care about the opera. They care about the ballet. They care about the culture. They care about it with a passion. And they need help. They need support. They need people to bring in people from abroad. So the cultural institutions, and then of course my father saw Valdovo Rūmai, which is very controversial. I mean, 90% of the Lithuanian people said, "Why are we spending all this money for a building?" Well, it turns out to be an amazing success. The biggest draw in Lithuania, and I'm going to have a meeting there to get an update on my father's dream realized. And so the cultural institutions, the Family Foundation is a very big supporter of Mo, because I think we told them that we would like to help them with educational programs for young people. So they now, because of a grant, allow or bring in young people from the villages, that's where the focus should be, to explore the museum, to take art classes, to learn about the great artists of Lithuanian history. I'm very, very proud of it. I'm a big, big supporter. And so, we've kind of expanded, and it'll be interesting to see what the next generation, they may be wanting to narrow the focus. We have given to, over the years, 1,000 organizations, $17 million in 25 years. We're celebrating our anniversary. And they may say, okay, what impact have we had? And should we maybe narrow it? You know, that will be interesting to see next couple of years.
Actually, that question about impact is really interesting. And I hope you, I assume you are making some interviews with the people who got some grants from you. How did their life has changed? And
Yes, that's very important. We do try to follow up. You know, I come here so rarely, but my wonderful staff are very, you know, they try to have a telephone conversation. Anybody who asks for money, we try to make it personal. Let me come and visit you. Let me see what you're doing. That's important. It's very easy to write, you know, a check. But again, and the follow-up. We're very thorough on follow-up. We ask for reports, you know, and thank you. A thank you letter is always very nice from an organization. Doesn't happen very often. And that's something Lithuanians should learn. You never go wrong by saying a quick email, thank you for my meeting. You know, my husband is very interesting. He was telling me that somebody was coming in to see him to ask for money, a lot of money. And he said, I'm not going to give it to him because I don't believe in this project. I don't think it's a good use of my money. So I said, why are you meeting with him? Your time is precious. Because he said, I owe him the courtesy. I owe him the courtesy of giving him that time. His boss is sending him, development officer, come meet with, you know, Mr. Altman. He makes his pitch. We have a thoughtful discussion. And then I say, thank you very much. I'll let you know. He goes back to his boss. I got the meeting. Took me 6 months. I got in to see him. And he said, you know, Jūrate, sometimes I may change my mind. You know, somebody may make such a pitch that I'll say, you know, he asked me for $1 million and I gave him 2 million, you know, so you never can tell. And I really appreciated that lesson, because sometimes we get requests and I say, no way, you know, no, I'm so sorry. We're stretched, we can't do it. And again, it's that message of kindness. This is this person's job. Respect him, respect this, initiative, this motivation. This is something that this person cares about and wants to share it with you.
You touched a few times the people who are asking for help, for support. Do you see some development in Lithuanian society, I don't know, among the people who are asking for help? Is something changing here? What does this tell to you about the processes in Lithuanian society? I don't know. Are you getting more applications, or people are becoming more brave or more straightforward? I don't know. I'm just guessing, but do you see some developments in this?
I do. We get a lot of requests, and you know, it makes me sad that somehow we don't quite have enough visibility. I mean, we're a very large, if not the largest, family foundation, and I'm always astonished that somebody said, you know, well, we haven't heard of you. We're having a 25th anniversary gala in November to celebrate all the work we've done, but also what other people are doing in this country. And I think those people asking, like I said, because we have initiated a formal application. Before, it was just out of my pocket. Somebody wanted something, you know. So that's very important. I think they're learning how to present themselves, and we are trying to set up some seminars open to nonprofits on, again, how you market yourself, how you make the pitch, and who you know, you have to be creative on who you go to. I sat next to a very successful Lithuanian on the plane coming in from Munich. And he talked about his business and his travels and whatever. And I got his card. I am sending him an email and I'm telling him, because I asked him about labdara. I said, you know, and he, of course, you know, talked about Ukraine, which is, by the way, taking away a lot from local organizations. That is the dilemma. Such a good cause. But we have heard from people coming to us. We used to get 50,000 euros from this organization. They're not supporting us this year because they gave it to Ukraine. And, you know, and so I think that it's a difficult time for local charities. I sympathize, and I don't know what to say, really. What's your answer? What do you say?
I can relate to that because I make permanent donations to Red Cross, and every year at the end of the year they are calling me and asking for something extra. And I remember this year I said, sorry, I can't because I donated money to Ukraine, and the resources, they are not infinitive, so I can't do so. I just think that we can hope that the war will be over.
But we're going to have reconstruction.
Yeah, but
there will still be such need to bring people back home,
of course,
to help them build. Believe me, this is a 5-10 year
maybe more
ahead of us. But you know, it was interesting in church. On Sunday, no, it wasn't. It was an organ recital, beautiful organ recital at St. Casimir. So there was nobody, you know, passing the. So I walked out of the church. I said, I'm going to make a donation. The first box I came to was for Ukraine. And I had to look around. Where's the box for the Bajnica? I finally found one. But, you know, prominently for Ukraine. Of course. But, you know, and it's never enough. I mean, my gosh, if, you know, Zelensky were here, he would just, you know, say, we need more, we need more. And the humanitarian side, and I'm just filled with such happiness at how we have welcomed, you know, 75,000 women and children mostly here in that wonderful center, you know, that the First Lady and the First Lady of Ukraine have opened up. I visited it twice already, and they're keeping their culture. The children are making Ukrainian dolls. They're singing Ukrainian songs, and I don't know how many will stay, how many will go back. It's, I sympathize because that was my family's plight. I mean, in my mother's diaries when they were in Germany, when will I see my homeland? Will the war end? Will we go back? The terrible uncertainty, and that's what these people are suffering and going through. It's a tragedy.
You are involved in philanthropic activities not only in Lithuania, but also in the United States and globally. Actually, I was amazed. I read a little bit about you, what you are doing to ease the life of refugees, of women worldwide. I'm sure that our viewers would be happy to learn more, to hear more from you. What are you doing?
Oh, well, you know, I'm a feminist, a proud feminist, and I care passionately about the women around the world who are suppressed, exploited. Let's not even go to Afghanistan. I mean, I shudder to think what's happened. But I have supported income-generating projects, and this is kind of what women need. They need to get a cow and make, you know, butter and milk and sell it in the market. They need to have a sewing machine so they can become tailors. And those are the programs that I've really tried to support all around the world. And the other thing that I cared very deeply about is getting women involved in peace process. And, you know, after the tragedy in, you know, Bosnia or whatever, we brought Muslim women and Serbian women to talk. And they said, we are all the same. I'm a widow. I lost my husband. I lost my son. We are in the same boat because of this. This war cannot go on. And I think that, you know, what we did was just facilitate. We got fax machines, you know, just brought in something to connect the women. So I care very much about, you know, sexual trafficking, child brides, anything that can help. And what I focus on, and I think people in the United States are very good about it, grassroots organizations. In other words, there's a hurricane somewhere and you instantly want to give to the Red Cross to come in, and we try to find the local church in this town that's been destroyed and the pastor, and go there. So the more we can go to the people who are actually doing the initiatives, local people, they know what the people need. We swoop in from America with our dollars and we can do this. And then they say, you know, we don't need a lot of money. This is what we need and this is what we can do. We can, you know, buy a car so our social worker can go around, you know, that kind of thing. We can get medicines to open up another clinic. So it's very, very important to listen to the people who are asking for help. What do they really need? And to be very thoughtful about asking the questions. I mean, philanthropy, the more I talk about it, it's like exhausting. I mean, you have to think, you have to be strategic, but you also have to be compassionate. And sometimes it's very, very hard to say, how can you turn somebody away who's, you know, saying, I know one of the questions you wanted to ask me is what am I proud of, you know, what I've achieved. And this is just recently, really thanks to my husband, who's also, you know, very creative that way. We donated quite a bit of money to the Legal Aid Society in New York for immigrants coming in. They don't speak the language, they don't know where to go, they need legal services to get asylum, to get their papers, to get work papers. We have pro bono lawyers, not enough. So we are paying for more lawyers so the traffic can move more quickly through the system. And then, because of COVID and the terrible impact that had on people's lives who lost their livelihood in an instant, no jobs, nothing, working with an organization called Women in Need, we set up, it was my idea, my husband's idea, an emergency cash fund, okay? I need $300 to pay this month's rent, I'm going to be evicted. If you go through the government bureaucracy, you have to fill out forms and reason. They come in to this pocket of money that we have, $300, here it is, pay, no papers, you know, you sign one paper that you got it, whatever. I need $100 to pay a babysitter so I can go for a job interview. I mean, it's that small, just $100 for a daytime babysitter so I can go for a job. Where am I going to get this money? You come into the emergency cash fund, tiny little increments. I need a new outfit for a job interview. We give them a little credit card to go to, you know, the department store and get a suit. And the director of the program said it is the most popular program. She asked me to double my donation. I did. They send me stories. They send me anecdotes with names of people. Maria Hernandez needed this and she got it, and, you know, whatever. And that's another thing I think nonprofits can do, to give stories about the impact your giving has made.
One more area you and your husband, Roger, you are involved is support for politicians from United States.
Oh, I don't want to go there.
Okay.
No.
I just wanted to ask
if
it's different to I don't know, is philanthropy related to politics different to other sorts, or it's the same?
Let's not go there. I mean, you know, I think it's all individual, you know, and you know, obviously there are some people who think the government should not help the poor should help themselves, or private people should help them, and that's the kind of the dilemma everywhere. How much should the government intercede. For example, here in this country, I can remember going to my father and saying, well, this program just sounds really important. He said, it's a government-run program. Why aren't they giving more? Why should we give more to this government program? No, he really, was kind of opposed to it. And this is something that, I'm meeting with the First Lady tomorrow and ask her, what are the causes? What does Lithuania need? And what are you doing? What is the government doing about it? And where is the private need? So that's a dilemma for almost every country. How much responsibility does the government have for its least blessed people? I mean, what do you really do? I mean, in the United States, terrible homeless population, terrible. And it's a mental problem as well. It's a alcohol addiction problem, drug problem. Life is complicated. Life is really complicated. I tell you, I am very, very sympathetic to refugees from the Middle East who have somehow ended up in Lithuania. And believe me, I've talked to them. They don't know how. They thought they were going to Germany, and Afghan, Syrian, and that's a real tragedy. And everything is so unfamiliar there. I know that they were in the center, and now they've been moved into villages. I wish the Lithuanians were a little more sympathetic and supportive to people, different skin, different culture, different food, different language, everything. We're so homogeneous here, and it's startling to see a black face, and it really is. And the only way for Lithuania to prosper is to have immigration. Our birth rate is sinking. Our best and brightest are going to London and Belgium to study and not coming back because they're smart and everybody wants to hire them. I've met them. I've met them in London. A doctor at a cocktail party. And I said, what are you doing here? They made me an offer, she said. I can't refuse. I mean, I'm just, this is the best. So the only thing is to bring in immigrants from different countries, different nationalities, to be more welcoming, to create. Obviously, it's human nature to want to be with your own people. That's why they want to go to Germany, because they have friends there. There's a community. And America has, it's unbelievable. I sit in the subway and I look in admiration of all the different languages, the different faces, the colors and everything. But yes, we have a Chinatown. And yes, there's an Indian Pakistan center. And then there's a Jewish center that people, the Orthodox feel comfortable in. It's understandable. You want to be with friends and your community who speak it, but you're also engaged in the larger world. And Lithuania has a very long way, all the Baltics, I think, and even the Scandinavian countries who seem to be a little bit more open to, people from Africa, whatever. So that is a very, very long range project the world faces, to say nothing of climate refugees. In 5 years, Bangladesh will be underwater, and all those people will be fleeing to Germany or somewhere. And that is, I don't know what kind of world we're leaving our children. And it just terrifies me. Some young people are not going to have children. They said, what do we give them? A world that's, drying up or going underwater or killing off each other. So there's many, many problems, but I have faith in humanity and people's, life is wonderful, and it's the only life we have, and it's very precious, and, we have to do the best we can for our family. Charity begins at home, and then, of course, as much as we can for other people. And let me make just one final point. It doesn't have to be money. Doesn't have to be money. It's your time. It's clothes. It's inviting somebody for a meal. And again, that eye contact, just to give this person the dignity that they deserve. So philanthropy is much bigger than giving money away. It really is treating other people less fortunate with love and kindness and generosity.
So, dear Jūrate, thank you very much for your ideas, for your thoughts, for your sharing. I'm sure that our viewers will be very interested in this conversation.